All right, we'll try it on this computer. Anywho, so how has keto been going for you guys?
I'll let you go first, Mr. Fred.
Well, I think I'm on track, and
Okay.
we have discussed um, the possibility of continuing to do it even afterwards.
Okay. And how do you feel about that?
I feel like I
Yeah.
suggested it actually.
Oh, you did? What? Excellent.
Well, as long as I can have some sourdough bread every once in a while, and a glass of wine every once in a while. And
Sure.
That kind of research, but not as extensive as New Year's Eve, maybe. Yeah, we took a drive. We had both of our cars oil changed today. And in our last drive to pick up or drop off, anyway,
Okay.
we talked. We talked about it, and
excuse me.
yeah. So Fred was just kind of like assuming we just kind of carry on. I know he said that he had lost another pound. And I said, well, maybe you're at where you want to be at. And he said, no, he'd really like to get down to 160.
Okay.
So I've got a little ways to go.
Sure. No, I love it.
But I guess all along I was assuming that I really need to kind of continue on with this
Sure.
for many reasons.
Yeah. And for both of you, sorry. You go.
I was also going to say that you remember I had this the issue with my hip. One of the things that used to like really bother me, would send me through the roof, was when I would try to roll over in bed, and that left hip area I couldn't do it. I'd have to figure out a different way to get rolled over without rolling over.
Sure.
Like sit up or whatever. But that's totally gone as well. And, I really thought I was going to be a candidate for a hip replacement. I mean, it was that bad.
Yeah.
And to think again, I mean, how many times do I have to learn that lesson, to think again that we have the power to heal.
Yeah.
And to not give it away. So
yeah, I love it. And so does it feel pretty sustainable for both of you?
Most elements of it.
Yes.
But there are some things that we have to expand our menu possibilities.
Okay.
Well, but in actuality, we have not tapped into your recipes as much as we could have.
Sure.
We might think of something that we want to have, fish or whatever. I think we just need to, I mean, I did make a menu for these 2 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah. And, normally we have all the ingredients here. We try to have those things handy, but, Fred still has to go out to get fresh fruits and veggies. And then,
that's the most limiting part, is the fruits.
The fruit. Sure.
But really, I mean, we have still done well with all those berries. But yeah, in the past, so many. I guess that would be it, the fruits.
The fruit.
Yeah.
And the occasional slice of bread and the occasional drink. Yeah.
Not like the drink thing's a big thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And what was I gonna say? So this week's meal plan is intentionally dairy free. Just because I feel like a lot of people, their bodies are sensitive to dairy, and so they can get pretty bogged down with all the dairy that can be incorporated in keto. Do either of you feel like that's affected you at all?
The one suspicion I would have about that dairy, I mean, the reason why we should experiment with that is that we always have runny noses.
Ah, okay.
Always. Wouldn't you
Okay.
say that?
Mhm.
Interesting.
If you're not like constantly blowing your nose, then you find that your nose is actually dripping or something, you know?
Okay.
It's that bad. Like the pouch of my sweatshirt's filled with Kleenexes and my
Huh.
pockets. And yeah, we can't go
Interesting.
anywhere without a Kleenex.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So
could
I
that
mean,
be dairy?
it could be absolutely,
Mm.
and that's cool that you made that correlation. I don't think a lot of people would necessarily make that correlation.
Mhm.
So,
We
absolutely.
haven't, what just butter is about all the dairy that we are using.
Cheese, yogurt, sour
cheese.
cream,
Yeah,
milk.
we eat a lot of cheeses, not much
Me
milk.
too.
I just had the first glass of milk that
Right.
I've had in
Well,
2 weeks.
I wouldn't even buy milk, but anyway.
Sure. Sure. But the dairy, absolutely. And when I say dairy free, chances are, I mean, so at this point, I mean, of course, this is optional. I would try going a week, potentially 2 weeks without dairy, and just see how you feel. Does the runny nose go away, or are there any other symptoms that might be bothering you? Like a lot of times skin issues, and it sounds like, Dad, you've taken care of, like, had I not chatted with Mom this morning and found out that your psoriasis is pretty much at bay, I would say then yes, you should definitely try removing dairy. And because it's there a little bit, like, see what happens when you take the dairy out. Does it go away completely? Because it's definitely a common allergen. However, that doesn't mean that you need to stop using butter. And
Whipping cream.
yes, I would go with that whipping cream. You could do full fat coconut milk out of a can. If you like that in your coffee, that fat is great. So if you can find it in a different source, like full fat coconut milk, and put that in your coffee, absolutely.
I guess I've never tried that. So.
Yeah, it does. I think it takes, I don't know, you might like it more. I prefer cream. Yeah,
well, I snack on cheese all the time.
Sure.
Maybe I'll have to go more nuts.
Well, and he just found a hummus, purchased hummus. We have an Aldi's now, and there's no sugar in it. So, I mean, it's good. It's just, but
Sure.
anyway.
It wouldn't be keto because it's garbanzo beans is going to be the base.
Oh, shoot.
But, and so again, like, just experiment with it, right? Like,
yeah.
And I would say making this sustainable for the future, like, why wouldn't you have some hummus occasionally? It's not like, it's going to kill you. Most importantly, you just want to make sure that it's not affecting the way that you feel. And, this, weight loss effects, So I would just, be careful with that. I would test it, see if it does kick you out of ketosis. And again, even if it does, it's not the end of the world unless it sends you into that space of like all or nothing, where you're like, okay, I'm out of ketosis and I can do whatever I want now. So just, practice those things in moderation. Absolutely.
Are you saying that though that coconut milk would I mean, that is part of keto, right? Coconut milk?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I was talking about the garbanzo beans and the hummus.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Well, so yeah. So did these 2 weeks feel good? Felt like an adequate amount of time to not have a check-in?
without the Zoom thing that,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I guess what I would say is, when we originally got interested in doing this, that, I saw 10 weeks, I was thinking 10 weeks. And then when the dates, and I'm going, well, wait a minute, how does that work? So I was kind of confused. I didn't realize that there would be this kind of larger time between.
Well,
But it
and
makes sense.
that was my fault. Because when I first, like, I must have been very scatterbrained and out of ketosis when I figured out the dates, because the first, it is a 10-week program, and that's how we've rolled it out in the past, that the first 3 weeks we meet every week, get people settled in and into the routine. And then from there, I just kind of kept drawing it out a little bit. And maybe, because nobody showed up tonight, since you guys are the only ones that showed up tonight, maybe I should have checked in more with people via email or whatever, just so that they wouldn't forget, because that's probably what happened, is just we weren't meeting regularly, and they forgot. But ideally, I kind of wanted people to experiment with, not having a check-in, right? Because a lot of times that is the accountability piece for people. And in real life, I'm not going to be checking in with you guys each week. So it was kind of like a baby step away from the meetings. But maybe, and I would, love your feedback on that, maybe that's not the way to go. When I first did this, we didn't have this, like, even with the drawn out ending, people still showed up for the last 2 meetings, so maybe that's something with the Zoom that, or maybe it's just a matter of me figuring out the right dates from the get-go. Like, that's pretty important too, right? Yeah. Okay. Are you guys?
The one thing I remember thinking, though, was, on New Year's Eve, there was a possibility we wouldn't be here. Turns out, and I don't know if the group was kind of chuckling because we were the oldest people in the group and we had plans for New Year's Eve. But there was something going on. Everybody was laughing and we didn't catch what that was about. But as it turned out, we had another engagement as well. So it was like this crazy time. But I was so grateful that we made the decision. And I talked with Kat about us leaving, coming early, leaving for, and I'm so glad I did, because there would have been this huge thing. And I agree that there is that sense of responsibility and accountability there. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. All right, you guys, we're gonna get into our presentation.
Okay.
And so today it is all about intermittent fasting. And are you guys actually able to see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right. So, okay. All right. So, just kind of checking in about barriers that you've overcome the past couple of weeks. Did anything feel different? I mean, I feel like you guys have, for the most part, you're feeling super successful with this. You're seeing the results that you were looking for. And so much so that you're thinking about, maintaining this, which I think is fantastic.
In this last period of time, I think one of the barriers that existed was that we just didn't seem to do the prep, set aside that official time for prep work. And it ended up kind of more day-to-day or meal by meal kind of prep.
Okay.
So that was
challenging.
That was just our own thing.
Sure. So it was challenging, but you were still able to make it through. Great.
Right. Okay. Right.
Did anybody experiment with stress reduction techniques? I know you guys are super good about daily meditation. Or did you try anything new? Did you even think about it, or you just kind of felt like it's so much a part of your routine already that you didn't need to put much thought into it?
I'll let you answer that first.
Well, the thing that I really enjoy is going on a 2-mile walk every day. And and I guess to a certain extent, when I'm able to get that walk in, that sort of makes the whole rest of the day go pretty good.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Great. So just exercise as a form of stress reduction, and it's probably kind of meditative too, right, Dad?
Unfortunately, I don't spend much time meditating anymore,
Oh, okay.
except that maybe in the morning, my routine is to come down, have 2 cups of coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and watch some bee things.
On YouTube. He's just,
Okay.
yeah.
And the only reason that I don't watch the news is to wait until Lori gets down here.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Are you saying that the bee YouTube stuff is kind of
I think
meditative?
he might have been saying that,
Well,
but I'm just
maybe-
gonna roll right over.
Maybe that is.
If it involves YouTube, I'm gonna say no.
You know, what I'm trying to say is that a routine like that is kind of meditative.
Meditative. Okay, I got it. Awesome. Good.
You're
good
getting
point.
ready for the rest of the day.
Sure. Sure. I love it. Yeah. So changes in your body. Sorry, Mom.
Mhm.
Are you still meditating daily?
Yeah, pretty much, yes.
Except
Okay.
when I interrupt her.
Yeah. Sometimes she'll shout up the stairs.
Well,
going,
I have no
Yeah, I
idea
know.
what you're
I'll have
doing.
to
You
put
don't
up
have a sign.
put up a flag.
Yeah. Right. Little
Yeah.
red button.
But one of the things I was thinking of, and just because Kat is so much a part of our bubble, the more I can kind of expose her to some of this, the more it will benefit us as well.
Yeah.
Because, so many of those things will help her, but in helping her, it will also help us. And just kind of with ideas of, like she invited us over for this brunch, which was great. She had made an egg bake or whatever, but there are egg bake recipes. And she said right away, it's not keto, but it's all right.
Sure.
So, those kinds of things to kind of, and kind of what I know now about Jim and the sugar thing, it is just so awful. And the more we can get away from it, the better.
Absolutely.
I wanted to just mention that I have made keto crackers.
Nice.
They are so good. I made them for New Year's Eve. I took a photo, but it's the whole posting of it that I'm not good at. It takes time.
Sure.
And then the recipe, I think, was actually from the 1% of Change, that book for Standard Process.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Right on. Nice.
And I even did try to take some, like the brownie recipe. Yeah. I can't just link you into it. I did try to take a picture of it. I don't know if it'll be readable or if I'll even get it posted, but I've tried.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, no, that is challenging. And I was going to say, if it was from a website, I can post it for you. Yeah. So I think that 1% change is online. So I might still be able to find it. We'll see. Okay. So just talking about, I'm going to do that for just a second. Just talking about weight loss, plateau, because chances are at some point everybody is going to hit this if it's not something you're currently struggling with. So some things that can help get you past that weight loss plateau. Here's where food sensitivities can play a huge role, because what happens is when you're consuming those foods that your body either has an allergy or a sensitivity to, it will create inflammation in the body, no matter what, right? So ultimately how that will translate is, you weigh more on the scale. So common food sensitivities are going to be eggs, nuts, and dairy. And then what I would say is when you are experimenting with this, I know this is challenging, but that 2-week period is going to be really key to actually allow you to figure out if these foods are a sensitivity for you. So I wouldn't remove all of them. I would not go crazy like that, but I would remove one at a time for that 2-week period and just notice, are there symptoms, dry skin that you see go away, or does it affect the scale? Do you start losing weight more rapidly as soon as you eliminate the nuts or the dairy or the eggs or whatever it is? But it's one thing at a time for a 2-week period. Other things you can play with are eliminating snacks, which you might actually notice that you're already doing because you are in ketosis and you're finding that you don't need to eat so frequently. You might not be snacking. You might not even be eating that much, which is great because every time we do consume food, insulin is spiked and it's nothing crazy because you are eating keto and your insulin levels are really in good ranges right now. But it is a thing, right? Like every time you eat, your insulin does get activated. It's a natural process. But just remembering that insulin is a fat storage hormone. And so talking about ways that we can reduce insulin in our bodies, not eating so frequently is definitely a way to do that if it feels right. And then hidden ingredients in packaged foods, so sugar is in everything. So hopefully, I know Dad, you're getting a lot better at this. Mom keeps telling me how amazed she is. But really reading ingredient lists and making sure that there aren't, gluten in things. I would say sugar is going to be the hardest ingredient to find, things that don't have sugar in it. It's kind of crazy and scary. No wonder
What about I know Fred has a tendency to buy nuts that are, in
packaged.
I like to get nuts from the co-op and I know what I like, but he'll get like a mixed nut. And there's sometimes like, there's canola oil or is it cottonseed oil?
Yeah.
Or
so with a prepackaged nut mix like that, I have not ever seen one without it. I'm sure there is such a thing, but there are going to be bad oils in there, which are toxic to the body, which will, increase inflammation. Ultimately, we store toxins in our fat tissues. So yes, I would say, make your own mixes so that you know that it doesn't have any bad oils in there, which really just means, polyunsaturated fats that are super unstable and cheap. They get used in foods a lot, and when they are exposed to high heats in the packaging process or the producing process, they become toxic. So polyunsaturated fat should not be heated ever. So that's a really good point.
And Kara, have you ever done something clever to nuts to kind of get a different flavor?
So I definitely have, not lately. My nut knowledge is kind of terrible, just because I am sensitive to nuts, and more than anything, I just try not to eat them. But what I would do is I would just Google it. right? You'll find all sorts of good nut seasoning recipes. I know the Co-op in their bulk section oftentimes will have some, like curried cashews, which I was just looking at them the other day and I'm like, oh, that sounds delicious, So yeah, you could, I would say, look at your Co-op. You might be able to find something that is totally appropriate, doesn't have bad fats in it, or sugar, and would be totally acceptable. Or you could try making them at home, if that fits into your lifestyle, for sure.
Sure.
So, and I don't think this is a thing that people are really doing right now, but if you are able to get takeout food, or dining out is a thing for you right now, again, back to those exposure to bad fats, increasing inflammation. And I guarantee, the overuse of sugar, when you don't have that, you're not in control of what's being put into your food. So, and again, just like we talked about, bad fats are going to increase inflammation in the body. Another way to get over that plateau, and I know a lot of you folks are already playing with this, is increasing the fasting window and decreasing the eating window. And that just means, maybe you skip your morning meal, and then when you do get hungry, you are eating a lot later in the day. Maybe you're just having one meal a day. And I did put this into the meal plan for this week. If it doesn't feel appropriate to your body, definitely don't do it. But if it does feel pretty natural and easy, then I would say definitely play with it. It's a great way to kind of see the scales tip in the right direction, or just kind of increase the weight loss benefits. Fasted workouts, I think, are also a great idea if it feels okay to your body. So maybe you're not having breakfast. Maybe you get in your walk or your yoga or your workout first thing in the morning. And what happens is the ketones go into the muscles instead of, running through the bloodstream, what can potentially happen if you take your ketones after a workout, they might have a low reading, but it's not that you're not in ketosis anymore. You're getting that low reading because the ketones aren't showing up in your blood. They're in your muscles, which is a great thing, right? Yeah, and again, just, a way to kind of increase weight loss benefits. I always think it's good to remind people about homeostasis. Like, your body is meant to keep you as it is. Losing weight could potentially be a sign of danger to the body. So once it kind of finds this healthy spot, it will work really hard to stay there. So I think just switching things up occasionally is great. And that might actually mean that, say you are doing the OMAD, the one meal a day is how it'll show up on your meal plan. Say you're doing that every single day, the way you switch that up might actually be putting in a day with 3 meals. So it doesn't necessarily need to be less food. It's just switching things up so that your body doesn't kind of get in this this rut of, this is how the body operates and we know what's going on here. A fasted workout could be another way to avoid that homeostasis. Or, extending a fast one day could also potentially help with that.
But Carrie, you're not talking about fasting for a whole day.
You could potentially do that, yeah, and we'll get into that today. Yeah, so it's a possibility for sure. Lowering carb intake even more. So those food items that are going to be heavier in carbohydrate are definitely nuts. They don't all have the same carb content. So like macadamia nuts are going to be higher in fat. I know off the top of my head that cashews are a real carbohydrate rich nut. So definitely nuts, dairy, certain vegetables, more specifically root vegetables, fruit are pretty high in carbohydrates. And then also those wonderful alternative grain products that the food industry has given us, which I am very thankful for, like those coconut flour, the coconut flour tortillas. They're great if you don't have to make those at home, but they are going to be higher carbohydrates. We've been eating a lot of, well, I've been kind of trying to experiment with crackers a bit just because I honestly don't see the time in my life to make them right now. So I've been purchasing quite a bit of different gluten grain-free crackers and seeing how it affects our ketones. But looking for ones that have a higher fat content and a lower carbohydrate ratio. And you know, so if you are partaking in these things, keeping them in really small portions. And then if it is stalling weight loss, just removing them. You know, it's not the end of the world.
What I was going to say, Kara, is making crackers is totally simple.
I know you say that.
No, have you ever made them?
No, I don't. Well, shouldn't say that. I will when
there's like a couple of ingredients. You mix them up, you roll them out really thin, roll them out thin on parchment paper, sprinkle it with whatever, and put them in the oven.
Put them in the oven.
I mean, I should say, you know, I've not made them that much, but I should, and it's on my list to do today, but I didn't. Yeah, but it's so easy.
After this week, when my life feels a little less stressy, I will put it on my list. And then, you know, watching that you're not eating super late at night or snacking too late in the evening, just because there is a digestion process that we want to happen. You know, so if you can, not eating 4 hours before bed, you know, and there's some contradictory information out there about this. So I would play with it for a week, see if it changes anything for you as far as the scale goes or how your body's feeling. And if it doesn't seem to be helping, then I wouldn't worry about it. It's probably not an issue for you. Oops, what's going on here? All right, so fasting, it is an ancient practice that our ancestors have been doing, and it is just the consciously not consuming food. You know, our ancestors always, before the industrial age, did definitely have these natural times of feasting and famine. You know, they couldn't just walk into the grocery store and buy whatever they wanted when they wanted it. They needed to go out and find it in the world. And finding it in the world, sometimes things were sparse. So it's actually like a very natural process for our bodies. We are just so bombarded with the food industry these days that, like, you say fasting and people are like, oh my God. You know, and thankfully there are, you know, tons of studies being done on it right now because of the health benefits that people are seeing with fasting. So I would say, you know, kind of along those lines of keto is very popular. Fasting is also very popular. So yeah. So here's the benefits. Brain protection and neuron production, hormone regulation, longevity, losing weight and body fat, reducing inflammation, and then do their natural process of dying off and clearing out of the body, if that makes sense. So cells clean and repair themselves, and boosting immunity. So, of course, I'm having a brain fart and I can't, it's called autophagy when the cells, cells are always producing in the body, and in a well-working, healthy body, we want those cells to rebuild, do what they're there to do, and then die off, and then they kind of like eat themselves and get them out of the body. And that's what we want them to do. But when liver gets sluggish and the body slows down, it's not the body's priority anymore. So it can cause problems. So I just like to tell people, I think it's really important that you are in ketosis and you are feeling a sense of not needing to eat all the time before you start playing around with fasting. I think it's really important. My personal feeling is that if you're not in that state, it's going to create this sense of indulgent eating when you come off your fast, if you're able to make it through a fasting period. So I would just say be careful with it, and know, like, just only do it if it feels good to your body and gives you the results that you're looking for. Yeah, and I think for you guys, I think I've put this slide in every presentation just to remind people what it feels like to be fueled by sugar and what it feels like to be a fat burner. Eventually, and fasting kind of taps into this, eventually when you are a fat burner, your body is going to burn your fat reserves, fueling itself, as opposed to fueling itself on the fat that you're consuming. So that's where this kind of fasting phase can be really useful as far as weight loss goes. Yeah, and just kind of a reminder, does anyone feel like they are experiencing any of these, wrong slide. Hopefully you're feeling like it's super easy to skip meals. You don't need to snack. And that doesn't mean that you don't necessarily snack. I know for me, a lot of times I'm like, this is just a habit for me. I'm not really hungry right now. It's just a habit. So that's something to think about. But you're not getting ravenously hungry. You're not craving carbs all the time. In fact, you might be pretty surprised at how you don't need or think about carbs anymore. And then that you're actually craving foods that have really good nutritional value to them and steady energy.
I woke up this morning. Fred got peanut butter at the co-op. We haven't had it for just ages, but this morning I woke up and I just could hardly wait to have a piece of celery with some peanut butter.
Nice. Nice. Exactly. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Clear mind and focused. This is the thing for me because I am very ADD and dyslexic. I definitely feel like when I am in ketosis, my brain just functions way better. In fact, that's the first thing David will notice about me is that I'm not so scattered. I'm not all over the place when I'm in ketosis, and when I'm out of it, it doesn't take much for me to get back there, right? When you guys did your research over the holiday and then you got back into ketosis, did you experience any keto flu symptoms, or was it pretty smooth sailing?
You want to go first, Fred?
Yeah, I didn't experience any.
Mhm.
Cool. Yeah.
The only thing is that, when we took the test, it was way out of balance,
Sure.
but we
Exactly.
knew
But
that
you
was
didn't,
going to happen.
yeah, you didn't feel anything in your body. You guys really didn't have keto flu to begin with either.
Yeah, but I certainly noticed, those same kinds of things that, um, kind of less motivated, maybe sleeping a little more, maybe a
Yes.
little down mood, those kinds of things. Um, yeah, so, I would say that, that was a work to kind of get back to,
Back into
but
it.
then, yeah, but I mean,
Absolutely.
it doesn't take that long.
Like, you were almost always, you don't have to get up and go somewhere else to get to sleep. Did that all start to happen when we started this?
um, Interesting question. Yeah, there
Yeah,
was
and then you have to dive a little deeper. Is that because you're not snoring or restless leg syndroming, or is it because
yeah,
mom is sleeping better?
I don't know. She
yeah,
hasn't told me that I stopped that.
The
yeah. I
restless
mean,
leg. I'd be very curious.
yeah,
Very
that's
curious.
interesting. I'd not really thought about. I mean, I certainly noticed that I wasn't getting up in the night or
Yeah.
going to another place to try to sleep. So I mean, absolutely, it's easier to
Sure.
fall asleep. It
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
and to stay
Cool. And
asleep.
stay asleep.
Um,
I love it. That's
But it
amazing.
wasn't always me with restless legs that kept you
Sure.
awake either.
oh no,
Sure.
no,
Well, that's true,
but
Mom. You did really struggle with
yeah.
what I would consider as insomnia for sure.
Right. And now that that we're talking about it, I'm thinking that so much of, that whole thing about sugar and how your mind is saying you got to have another whatever hit of it or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but and then the effects are that you do, I think you have these negative thoughts or you stress out about things or you're thinking about the future or the past versus
Yes.
now, I mean,
Absolutely. Well,
and yeah, it's all
you go ahead.
related.
Sorry. Well,
It's
and I
all
think
related.
sugar absolutely, whether we realize it or not, feeds depression, feeds anxiety. Um,
Yes.
and I just actually physically notice it in my body. If I eat sugar, I get hot. I will sleep really hot and sweaty.
Hmm.
And that makes sleeping challenging. And then also when people are struggling with blood sugar imbalances, you have to urinate more. So like for me, I would have to get up at 2 or 3 a.m. every night and go to the bathroom. Um, so yeah, it's all related, and mind-blowingly related, right? When you
Yep.
start to think about, wait a minute, is this actually happening anymore or not? So just kind of touching back on fasting, I would say, not everybody should fast, and we'll talk more about that. But if it is something that feels right to your body, and I would never recommend trying to fast when people are struggling with blood sugar imbalances. I just think it's a terrible idea. But when you're feeling like you are fueled for long duration, stress levels are low, then it's a great time to kind of play with it and see what feels right to your body. Start small, see how it feels. And I personally think breakfast is the easiest meal to skip, but it could be it could be whatever works best for your body, and that's going to be different for everybody. A lot of times you'll see this 16-8 fast, and that's just your fasting window, including when you're sleeping and everything, is 16 hours, and then you only have an 8-hour eating window wherever that falls in your day. So no snacking outside of those 8 hours, or sorry, inside those 8 hours. I would say start slowly, and then if it feels good and it feels like you can do longer, then just build on it. And once you can easily do a 16-hour fast, including your sleep time, then just start to increase it. You know, I would say play with it and see what feels appropriate for your body. And of course, if it doesn't feel good, there's no reason why you have to continue doing it. So
these are all things that that would be legitimate and during the fasting time. Oh my gosh,
yes.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and so this is kind of the cool thing about, there are no hard and fast rules. If it's a water fast, clearly it's a water fast, and that's all you drink during that fasting period. I would definitely suggest putting some sea salt, some electrolytes in it, so that you're not depleting the body. But if it's just a fast and you're defining your own fast, you get to decide if you're going to have, definitely have water. I would not recommend a fast without water, but that's just me. Teas could be appropriate. Coffee could be appropriate. In fact, I find that when I do fast, and I haven't been dabbling in this too much lately, that coffee is kind of my saving grace. It'll help abate hunger a little bit. It could be buttered coffee. It could be coffee with coconut milk or heavy whipping cream in it, because it's your fast and you get to define what that looks like. It could be bone broth, and including drinkable.
Quite a lot.
It could be
when you look at that we can have coffee and whipping cream, and we've been doing that for a long time.
I would say for sure on a regular basis, if we sleep 8 hours, we're fasting at least 6, 8, 14 hours probably.
The earliest that we eat is 11 o'clock.
Or 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So now, if you want to, take it up a notch, you could play around with extending those time periods. And that's totally up to you and what feels right for your body. And I would just say, always be flexible, right? Like, you might have a time frame set in your mind, and then if it doesn't work out because your body's telling you that it's not working out, it's okay, right? Eat. It's fine. Try it again some other time, or maybe you never try it again, and that's fine as well. Just, kind of choosing times that work for your schedule and body, and then stop. If it doesn't feel good, stop. Eat something. So just, and I think, some people, setting a time frame and having that in their mind, that'll help kind of motivate them, but like, don't be crazy about it, is my words of wisdom.
I love that little quote. I love the little quote down in the corner that if you listen to your, what is it? What was it? If you listen
if you
when
listen,
your body
whispers, it won't have to scream. Brilliant, right? So there are so many options when it comes to fasting. You can do short daily fasts more frequently. You can do longer fasts, and kind of the thing with longer fast is that it's going to amplify health benefits. And I always, if you are on medications or have some sort of health concern, I would chat with your doctor first. And, again, I would say you're going to need to find a doctor who has an open mind. A lot of times I feel like doctors aren't necessarily educated in these things. And then just kind of the general populace, when you stay fasting, they're like, oh my God, why would you do that? Don't do that to your body. It's a terrible idea, which, there are health benefits to it, and maybe it would work out for you. If that fast is longer than 24 hours, you're definitely going to want to supplement with some quality minerals, maybe a multivitamin. Yeah, so there's lots of options. And then just kind of, like I said, there are people who shouldn't fast, and that might be because of your personality type. Or it might be that it might be a physical condition, you're pregnant, or if you're trying to conceive, don't fast. If you're under a lot of stress, definitely not a good idea. People who have had eating disorders in the past, I would definitely not even dabble in fasting. I would just kind of, stick where you're at. Maybe you skip breakfast and that feels good. But I wouldn't really go beyond that 16-8 eating window. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if it doesn't feel right for your body, then you just shouldn't be doing it. I'll just say that. But I also have, strong feelings that when you are in ketosis, the process can come really naturally. When you are fat adapted, it's just, and I think everybody who's played around with being in ketosis can attest to the fact that you just don't need to eat as often. And why wouldn't you play along with pushing that out a little bit? Yeah. All right. So homework. This sheet is in that zip file that I emailed today. If you are somebody who likes to write things down, then print it out, or maybe I just leave it up here and you, write it in your journal or wherever you're keeping track of things. But, deciding if intermittent fasting is something that you're ready to start playing around with a little bit. Or if you have been intermittent fasting by skipping breakfast, maybe you're ready to play around with extending those time periods. If weight loss has stalled, then I would highly recommend, thinking about some of those breaking through plateau issues that we talked about, whether that's, removing a certain food item, dairy, nuts, eggs, or it's, fasted workouts, or maybe you haven't been working out and now would be a good time to start adding that in. Anyway, and then I think, writing down a plan. If you feel like nuts are an issue for you, whether it's a sensitivity or there's just too much carbohydrate in them, make a plan for removing them for that 2-week period. Really get super focused on recording things so that you can notice if it is helping you or it's not changing anything. And then lastly, I would just say, and you guys have already talked about this, just starting to think about what do things look like for keto in your life after our last meeting. And, I think for everyone, there'll be some things that they want to keep and some things that they don't. So I think kind of thinking about that now and coming up with a plan of action, I think is always important and will help you in the long run. Fasting resources. There's a book that is wonderful called The Complete Guide to Fasting. Dr. Jason Fung, he has kind of gone what I would call crazy in the fasting world. I think he also has another book out called In the Fast Lane, which I actually haven't read, but he has, all these groups and programs for fasting. So I would say, if you're interested, check it out. Some folks in our first keto round, they ordered the book, and I have The Complete Guide to Fasting. So I think it's good information to have. I don't think it's necessarily something that you need to go overboard with as far as fasting goes, but and then Dr. Eric Berg has some really interesting short videos on YouTube about fasting. And then this is just the fasting program, the idmprogram.com if you're interested in any of that. So our last meeting, and hopefully we can get almost everybody to show up to this, but I'll put this out to folks by the end of the week and just kind of make sure that people are going to be able to attend the last meeting, because I think it is quite important. Yeah, do you guys want to look at the meal plan at all? Or are you, I mean, I guess I might as well just bring it up here. I think it's kind of
Well,
good.
two things I was gonna mention. One
Yes.
is, so much of what you've covered in this program is related to preventing dementia. And I don't know if you've done any, if you've given that any thought, because there should be a lot of people out there concerned about how do they live or age without developing dementia.
Right.
And it is all connected.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up, because, to me, Alzheimer's, they call it type 3 diabetes. So absolutely, it's all created. It's all connected. I hadn't thought about it too much, but you really do have a good point that there is a huge demographic that this program would be very, very good for, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've read a lot, and I've watched a lot, and chatting with you a lot. And I just know that it is so key. And the people who are, seniors now, chances are they're going to live a long time, and I'm pretty darn sure that they want to live well, not just live,
Yes, absolutely.
The other thing, go ahead.
Well, you have a good point too, because a lot of times, like, by the time people are starting to have troubles with Alzheimer's, there's not a whole lot you can do with it at that point. So, going through this program, at a young age, so that you can really be on the preventative with it, is huge. And it's not something that I really thought about so much.
So if you could insert that a little bit, because like the other people who are taking this, that can be another trigger for them to really be proactive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and important. The other thing I was going to mention was, I would love to know if anybody has a keto cookbook that they love. I prefer a cookbook than to going online.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first bought our first keto cookbook, we were at Barnes & Nobles in La Crosse. I took every keto cookbook they had, and I spread it out on the floor, and I looked through every one. And I made a connection with this one, mostly because of her own personal story, which was in the front of the book. And the recipes are just wonderful. So yeah. But I'd love to have more.
Yeah, I know Mona has one, maybe two. I don't know if she loves the recipes in them. I have a couple. I definitely wouldn't say that I love them. Like, one, I actually just, like, looking at the pictures, I'm like, the pictures aren't even appetizing. Like,
yeah. Ooh.
But I feel like I did have one at one point that had some good recipes in it, but I feel like it might be packed up. I will post a picture of the one that I have that I don't think is that awesome, and maybe some other folks will chime in. There's just so much out there that I really just kind of use the web, and just to save space, and so, but that's a great question. We'll put it out there. All right. So all of the items in red, and in my scatterbrained, sleep-deprived me, I forgot to note that everything in red does not have a recipe for it. use your creativity.
Mhm.
And then,
So in this, Karen, this then you've eliminated dairy,
dairy.
but not eggs.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Right. Just dairy, because I feel like it is, you know, and then there's like quality of dairy and quality of eggs, which is probably something we should talk about at some point. But, you know, so that's something to think about. So if you do go 2 weeks period with removing dairy, and then you start entering really good quality dairy in, so that full fat cultured yogurt, sour cream is going to be more tolerable for the body. Raw dairy is definitely more nutritious and more tolerated for folks. So like Parmesan, when I'm in the cheese section, I'm always looking for raw whatever, and you know, I think it's better to have. So, but folks who do find that they are dairy sensitive, once they've eliminated it for a while and then maybe they just bring in raw dairy, they might find that they can tolerate it a lot better. So I was also thinking about keeping things simple. So I did a lot of soups, mostly because I was sick. But also they're easy, right? You make soup and you have dinner for at least another night, maybe more. And you know, if you have a lot of time on your hands, freeze those soups so that they're there when you don't have a lot of time on your hands. I used a lot of this dragon's breath spice for 3 different meals, I think. You don't need to use that spice. You know, it's really spicy, thus dragon's breath. So it might not even, if you don't like a whole lot of spice, you might not be into it. But if you do like spice, play around with it. So, and then
is that something you made or something that's a product?
No, you know what? A client gave me some for Christmas, gave me a dragon's breath soup that they had made and canned. So she turned me on to it, but it's Guy Fieri, who I'm probably not saying his name right, but he's like one of those celebrity chefs.
Okay.
And it's his recipe, but we really do like it. Like, you know, you can make delicious soups out of it. If we have some pulled chicken left over, it's really easy to just season the pulled chicken, make tacos with it. Yeah, so pretty easy. And I just figured since you were going to be making some of the spice, you might as well use it more that week. And then I also have some recipes that are not mine. You'll copy and paste them into your browser, and it will bring you to the website for the recipe. But all of those items are in the grocery list, so don't worry about that. What else do I have to say? I think that is about it. The steak salad I didn't actually give you a recipe for, but I did find a dairy-free mayo ranch dressing recipe. Yeah, we always put mayo and sour cream in our ranch dressing, so I had to kind of go out on a journey and find a dairy-free version. So, yeah, great. Any questions there?
No, I think we're good. Thank you for all of this.
Thank you guys. Excellent. Cool. All right. So I will connect everybody and just make sure that we're going to get some folks, hopefully everybody, to show up for our lab. What was that?
I hope they go.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see everybody before we part ways. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, you guys.
right.
Thank you so much. We'll be in touch. Yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Thanks,
Hey,
Kara.
Thanks, you guys.
Say hi to David.
Good
Love
luck
you too.
tomorrow.
I will. Thank you. Love you guys. Bye.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.